Welcome to another Founder Wisdom podcast today with Malak Yacout. She is founder and executive director at Volunteer Circle. We're going to talk about a bunch of interesting stuff today. Malak has quite the interesting background, having done some TED Talks and getting quite the follower base. Malak is a lean startup founder, impact entrepreneur, community builder, and WEF Global Shaper. This podcast is brought to you by podpar.com, which is my podcasting agency. If you want help starting your pod, but most importantly, scaling it and monetizing it, you can hit me up. Can find you sponsors, can find you guests, can monetize your pod, which is a hard thing to do for most because only 3% of podcasts make it past the 10th episode or something like that. People just give up because they cannot find a way to monetize them. Podcasts are great. I started them to learn from people like Malak, and it became a lead gen factory as well, and a community building tool. So very grateful for podcasts. Podpar.com if you need help with that. Malak, welcome to the pod. Can you tell me a bit more about yourself and TVC?
So happy and so grateful to be here. Thank you so much, Charles. I am Malak. I am 26. I was born in Alexandria, Egypt, and I moved to Lebanon when I was 2. Family circumstances. Grew up all my life in Lebanon, and so I'm very grateful to have 2 homes, Lebanon and Egypt. I've also had the opportunity to travel to more than 40 countries and visit many cities around the world. So anywhere is my home. The Volunteer Circle is the brainchild of myself and my co-founder, Nadine, who works at an international organization. And we founded the Volunteer Circle when I was 19 as a product of just lack of accessibility to volunteer opportunities. And we live in a country with a lot of social breakages. Just didn't make any sense that we didn't have a platform that can connect volunteer supply and organizations' demand. Like 2 years into the process, we realized that volunteerism actually leads people to jobs, changes people's lives to the better, and builds the social capital of people so they can build better startups. And so today we are in the space of transforming wasted potential, times and skills that go otherwise to waste, to tangible impact on economic, social, environmental, and cultural levels.
That's really cool. You started that organization very young. I know that volunteering was recommended at university to add to your CV, which to me is a bit sad because it's like volunteering for the purpose of money in the end, even if you do it for free. So you might want to break down that misconception of mine, if it is one. And second, nowadays, I try to volunteer and I schedule it in my weekends. For example, me and my wife next weekend, we just buy tuna, bananas, crackers, and all of that, and water, and go redistribute it to people in the streets here. Think that's a start. It's not epic, but at least it's like a habit that I can use. I also donate a bunch. I could volunteer way more, and arguably this podcast, one reason why I started it was to give back free information to people, because I'm all about education. For example, the recent conflict with Israel and Palestine, I think, is just miscommunications, misinformation, miseducation. It's just people not reasoning the right way, and doing stupid stuff as a result. So tell me about, if it is a misconception of mine that, people volunteer just for money, one. And two, what do you think about my own volunteering efforts as an entrepreneur?
Definitely. So it is one of the most common stereotypes that volunteers sometimes will get something in return or volunteer for the financial and monetary reward. But by definition, volunteering is sharing your time and skills willingly, not expecting anything in return. You get the reason why we called it the volunteer circle, because actually what you put in always comes back to you in some shape or form, right? Whether I met the best people in my life who became my best friends, I met partners, I met entrepreneurs, leaders, mentors, I met coaches. My entire life changed, right, when I started to volunteer. And we facilitated the volunteer circle through a tech platform to really encourage people to share their time and skills, most importantly. So we focus on skill-based volunteering, because when you are volunteering your skills, you're building your own capacity and you're building your network more than just, time-based opportunities, anybody can fill them. But skill-based opportunities require a bit more expertise, and people feel like their value is more unique. Like there isn't anybody else who could fill their position other than you, right? You as a graphic designer, or you as a lawyer, or you as a pro bono, artist, right? And actually, I wrote an article, which we can provide the link for, about 6 ways volunteering makes you a better entrepreneur on the World Economic Forum. And these ways all include either volunteering first puts you at the forefront of social or environmental causes. And by volunteering, you gain the insight and the firsthand experience of beneficiaries that maybe other people in your industry won't get. When you do that, you're able to either deepen your impact or diversify your target audiences. And I like being exposed to multiple volunteer models. I found very interesting that in Egypt, actually, every minister or every ministry has, of course, the minister, and has an executive assistant or executive vice. And this executive vice is selected based on their volunteer experiences. Most often than not, they are the #1 volunteers in their fields, right? They give voices to the younger generation that maybe the minister does not have the time to engage with, but they give insight and a voice to this generation and the beneficiaries that they have supported, and they give them a seat on the table indirectly. Actually, one of our volunteers also during COVID, Mariam, volunteered with us for 1 year on a COVID hotline project. And because she gave from her heart, she was outstanding in her performance and in her discipline. And 1 year later, she was selected among all the volunteers to be the youngest consultant for the Ministry of Health in Lebanon. So the volunteering gets you very far, but it's also what you give and that comes back to you.
Right. Love this. And what do you think about as an entrepreneur, probably starting small and giving back your time in very basic ways, going out there in your community and giving your time, your energy, and maybe a bit of your money if you can convert it into food?
Definitely. It all takes small steps. But do you mean it in a specific context?
I mean that in the startup world, it's good to be lean and it's good to experiment. And if you go out in any societies in the center of a city, there's going to be people asking for money. So they're already there as a market. They're not difficult customers, right? What they want is to be helped. And so you have your customers. And if you buy some food on your end and go redistribute it to these people so that you're sure that they don't convert that cash into alcohol or other sins, you can basically help them and A/B test that, ask them questions also. And from there, maybe a seed can flower into multiple nonprofits and volunteering opportunities for you, if you are entrepreneurial, that is. What do you think about that?
Definitely, I encourage that. And that's actually how the volunteer circle started, from an idea, from almost nothing to an incredible award-winning nonprofit social enterprise. It's all about putting yourself in the shoes of your community and actually being a part of it. I was a volunteer myself, and I couldn't find any volunteer opportunity at a time where it didn't resonate, Charles. Like, it didn't resonate with me. We had like a refugee crisis, environmental crisis. We had no president. How come I can't find a volunteer opportunity that matches my time my availability, my location, what my interests are? I think community needs are increasing as we're speaking right now. And if you feel it, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, you can already do something about it. whatever initiative that is. And the most important thing is to start in your backyard.
What is your opinion on nonprofits via social startups? Because I feel that every time we inject cash into something, it is super beneficial because cash brings accountability. And I feel that most nonprofits cannot scale, aka it like be impactful as much as they could in their cause as if they would be not profits driven, but like let's say 80% profits and 20% doing goods. So what's your opinion on that?
I think the world needs both nonprofits and social startups and social enterprises. And actually, I'm very happy that in 2023, we're progressing more and more towards sustainability, and more nonprofits are converting their models or opening up like an offshoot or a social entrepreneurship arm, because they know that donations are not sustainable and that donor money is becoming more and more scarce by the day. So actually, if we are to look on a spectrum, nonprofits are here and the corporate companies are on the other end. Social enterprises are in the middle, providing the business model of a company. So your business model at the heart of your mission, and a social or environmental or cultural cause. The idea of a social enterprise is that it differs from a company that has just a CSR or like needs to donate 10% of their money just to get like a tax refund. As a social enterprise, your mission and vision are centered around a specific purpose. So the more you make money, the more impact you make. And I'm sure you're familiar with a lot of social enterprises like Patagonia. We have so many right now, and the industry is growing in the MENA region. So it really depends on our viewers. But I invite our viewers to think of like top 3 social enterprises in their community and support them. Volunteer for them, maybe.
And Patagonia is an interesting one because they did it when it wasn't popular. And I'm really surprised that I'm still reading the book of Yvon Chouinard, but yeah, it's such a great book. But, at first I almost burned the book because I thought it was like a communist book or something. When I started it, it was like trash talking capitalism. And I just don't think people that trash talk capitalism are aligned with my mentality or this world, matter of fact. But as I'm progressing in the book, I'm starting to discover that, yeah, it's a bit more about embracing it. And yeah, it's an interesting story. So I'm going through the current book right now. I think there's definitely more social startups nowadays from younger founders. And I think these can scale infinitely, if the founders are willing to sacrifice a tad of money. Because when you do good for the planet or for people, it does come back to you, but in incrementally small amounts and over a very long scale, and it's hard to measure. So I think it's something that needs to come from the heart. And I think that can also ironically scale capitalism, because capitalism by itself without any social will self-destruct, I believe, one day. Such a hard challenge though, because everyone else, if you check game theory, like everyone else in the game they're not socially oriented. I mean, we've seen a positive impact lately with like the ESG movement and all of that, and everyone's catching up to this. But when you're competing against a company that doesn't give a shit about the social or the environment, you can make more money. They can reinvest that money into beating you up. So, but I think you will gain some clients by just signaling that you are socially conscious and so forth. So interesting times nonetheless. Do you agree that we've seen that movement gain traction the last couple of years?
Definitely, I agree. And honestly, the world is moving in a way that we cannot afford not moving towards social and environmental sustainability. Like, it's no longer possible, given the resources that the shift of resources. And honestly, the next generation is not going to leave any room for corporates to like, endure. But and there are actually several examples where an organization or a company can actually shift their business model into a more impactful one. it's not, you don't have to change your entire business model. Your your user might not be your customer, and you can create sister companies to like offset an impact that you're trying to make. Actually, I'm thinking of, like, I have two examples on top of my mind. An organization called نتكلم. نتكلم means we speak in Arabic. And نتكلم started out of was born out of the refugee crisis to while refugees are seeking a new home, especially refugees coming from Syria, to be able to kind of like include them in their society, in their new societies, by providing the language, right? So, okay, we have a batch of refugees that are moving into Russia, Germany, Europe, a bunch of countries. How are they going to be integrated in society? Language. So people would teach them their foreign language and learn from them Arabic. It was an exchange. Now tell me, how do we make a business out of it? You know what they realized? That these refugees did not have a decent livelihood opportunity. So they were very skilled at Arabic. So what did they do? They provided them with translation opportunities. So they now translate for the biggest institutions in the world, academic institutions and companies, and they get paid for that because they're good at it. While the social impact is ongoing because language and like courses are ongoing, right? So you don't have to remove either or. And I believe that even the biggest of companies, if they don't, the CEO does not have to be socially oriented, but someone in the team could be, and this person must be given a chance, because there is innovation and inspiration can come from anywhere. And as we were saying, like, the world is moving in a direction that does not, if we don't take action now, we're gonna have to pay the consequences really, really high.
Right. I'm just afraid though that newer generations, they go from one extreme to another. So the extreme nowadays is like very corporate-y, and the new gen is like, yeah, peace and love, you know, and we've seen that throughout history. And I do believe that, yeah, the peace and love won't go anywhere without money. Money is a beautiful invention. It's the glue of our society. It's what makes us trust and exchange with one another, and people underestimate that, hipsters included. You know, like they bought some clothes, they have their safety because of a society that they live in, right? There's like order and civilization and civilized people mostly because of money, I would say, and trust. Trust is like the embodiment. Money is the embodiment of trust, and vice versa. How do you go about with money on your side? Do you have like a number that is creating an optimal level of happiness in your life? You can put your own oxygen mask first, and since you're happy, you can spread out this energy out there that will yield even greater impact in the world. How do you go with that? And for example, paying yourself and making sure that your needs are taken care of to run your companies.
I love your question. And, you know, I am very grateful, because if I learned one thing from travel, is to make the best life possible out of the least amount of resources available. And travel really taught me how to undress or let go of my materialistic attachments. And today every day I think of donating stuff, selling stuff, buying secondhand. You know what I mean? There's become a lot of more intentionality and purpose in every single choice. And I think you can relate to that because you've traveled also a lot. So I think money is not part of the equation at all. At all. There isn't an amount, I think, that can cut it. Of course, I don't underscore the fact that money breeds comfort, right? However, happiness, security, safety, no, not really.
I would challenge that once you have a family and a rent, because
Definitely.
we need to stay somewhere, you know, and I mean, I'm more on your side than most when it comes to this, because I've hacked my way through as well. I had some disgusting Airbnbs that I rented at some points. I had some luxurious ones. And my sense of Maslow hierarchy of needs in terms of having a roof over my head is way lower than most, meaning that I could probably sleep in the street or somewhere, just had to find something against mosquitoes because they just annoy the fuck out of me. But yeah, like I think that in terms of money, and money is like an amplifier. So if I invest it somewhere, I can probably get 10 other back if I'm good. Also, I have given it to someone that can invest it, and because of that, there's trust at scale. Else I do think that most humans would be killing one another. I think that we've defeated the laws of scale, and we see these laws of scale break at many points when we see terrorist attacks. Some people take advantage of the fact that there's a bunch of humans come back together and try to kill as many as possible in the shortest amount of time. That's why they're called terrorists, is that they take advantage of the laws of scale on the negative side of things. But I do think that without that money and that common currency of exchange, because there's language, we all speak one language, but for travels, for example, sometimes you don't speak the same language, but everyone speaks the language of money. Oh, $1 for that bottle of water. And yeah, it's just a facilitation device and technology. But on the other hand, a bunch of people use it to do bad things, such as warmongering, starting a military company that is going to make more profit if people start killing each other. This is very immoral. Or pornography, for example, having guys hooked on their computer almost 24/7 and taking advantage of the weak human psychology. So with that being said, because you've traveled in Egypt, right? For example, Egypt is one of the cheapest regions in the world. That's also, and I've seen Barcelona that you've done. Barcelona is more expensive, right? So how did you do to live on a very small and tight budget in these regions of the world?
Definitely. I think now that you've kind of like spread the spectrum of what we're talking about or the subject, I see what you mean. As my value system, I don't have a sum that I need to live by. But of course, money is very important for your livelihoods and for the livelihoods of everyone. And if we are to put it in the context of what we're talking about, you can make money and make a change in the lives of others, right? You can make money and do something purposeful, right? Having a social enterprise or running a social startup does not eliminate this option. And I am here. I'm one of many examples that can showcase that. And actually, yes, you are right. Egypt is cheaper, and the way I do it is by, of course, running the volunteer circle and being part of other projects as well on a consultancy basis, on a project basis. Actually, my mind is very entrepreneurial, so I like to explore so many ideas at once, and the volunteer circle is just one of many.
Right. I'm reading Sam Bankman-Fried's somewhat biography book, which is quite good, by Michael Lewis, prominent author that developed many books about Wall Street and so forth, Liar's Poker and all these great books, Moneyball. And Sam was fan of an ideology which is still valid in my opinion. It's called effective altruism. And the philosophy is, do I become a doctor and save 100 lives? Or do I make a crap ton of money, $100 million, and I hire 100 doctors to save 1,000 lives per year? What is your philosophy or opinion on this ideology of effective altruism?
Can we repeat the analogy? It takes me a while for it to sink in. So
yeah, effective altruism, you can think of it as utilitarianism. It's a branch of it, if you want. And it's the fact of thinking of your impact, what resources, what inputs can lead to what output. So if should I become a doctor and impact and save lives, or should I become very rich and invest these resources in making a better world, which by the way is my philosophy of things. Like I do want to start a bunch of social startups, but I do think that one of the best and easiest way to get there, apart from acquiring that knowledge and the connections, right? Because you've been acquiring these connections as a WF speaker and so forth. I do believe that amassing as much money as possible and then redistributing it smartly is one of the best way to go there. So what do you think about that?
I think that none of the two, like there must be also a lot of other ways, but if we are to consider these two, there isn't one way to get there. And there are just some people made to take on the challenge and do it like from ASAP and just, do the dirty work early on. And there are some people who actually prefer suffering in a different way to give back later. So I think what's important to consider and not to miss out on the journey is that, remember we were talking about small steps. You can always do something while you're building that empire that will give back, or you can always try to increase your wealth while you're trying to do something for the betterment of humanity. It's a balance of priorities. And by the way, you can start your journey thinking that, oh, I want to keep I don't know, doing good, like, and being a doctor and saving lives, and then change midway, right? Change midway. Circumstances of life will make you change. Doesn't mean that you let go of your vision or let go of that objective. Because I have a philosophy that says that I want to carry myself and move through the world in a way that if I die at any point, I don't regret it. Right?
Love that.
Having done my best and my utmost, like, capacity, give my utmost capacity in a way that if I rest and I don't wake up tomorrow, I am good. And the way that I do that is just by investing in the people around me, because I don't think that all the knowledge should be encapsulated in one person, right?
Carpe diem. So that's how I started living my life, but it was pretty dumb and not scalable. But I think it was necessary. And the way I lived it, obviously it's not the way you lived it, but me, it was like drinking alcohol, going to parties and having as many women as I could. And that didn't scale, but I lived it at least, and I know that it's not scalable. Nowadays, yes, I do have a bit of carpe diem in me, but it's more the scalable way, like you said, investing in my community, my family, loved ones, and so forth. So I love that. And just one last parting comment on effective altruism. I think in Sam's case and a lot of people, the way to make the most money, arguably in that case, in this example, it was like Wall Street type and trades. Nowadays it would be more, I think, in a startup way in artificial intelligence. But the trap with this is that, oh, I'm gonna make money at any cost, and once I make it, I will redistribute it. But we need to calculate the cost of making that money, like, and when you trade anything, there's a loser at the other end of the trade. You win, they lose, and that's really detrimental to the whole ecosystem. Or if it would be to steal from a bunch of people, well, you stole from these people. And I mean, typically a trade is somewhat stealing, but it's acceptable stealing. It's like, oh, we signed the rules and that's fine. Anyway, in Sam's case, it wasn't beneficial because, yeah, he ended up in jail. And well, not yet, but yeah, he will end up in jail, and that defeats the whole purpose. I really like your philosophy. It's really similar to mine. It's basically A/B testing a bunch of things and seeing what works, what sticks, and what doesn't, and hopefully using an artificial intelligence to challenge you and to take notes and to tell you a bit more about yourself, because your own human brain is somewhat fallible. Thank you for showing up today, Malak. Where can people find out more about you?
LinkedIn, mostly. That's where I'm the most active. And I'm a person who values the gift of everyone. So I really like connecting, and I'm very accessible. I might share also my LinkedIn profile if need be. I shared with you the link for the 6 6 ways volunteering can make you a better entrepreneur. And it's such a joy to have a conversation with you, Charles. We can talk about anything, literally anything.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your knowledge today. And that link that Malak shared, you can just Google Malak Yacout and weforum.org, and you will find 6 ways of volunteering that can improve your skill set and make you a better entrepreneur. So that was another podcast. You can find us at founderwisdompodcast.com. That was Charles Cormier as your host and Malak Yacout as a guest.